What does it mean, fermentation?
It's like, okay, what does the word mean?
Yeah, what is fermentation?
It's like that anaerobic process. You break stuff down
down.
without
Number one,
oxygen.
anaerobic.
Mm.
It's important. Let's just
Okay.
break it. Anything complex, you break it to individual, characteristic. It's an anaerobic process. Why is it important that it's anaerobic?
And for people that don't know what anaerobic means, that means without oxygen,
Correct. Without air.
air.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you go to a sewage, lots of anaerobic things happen there too. But that's not fermentation. What is specific to fermentation? Or let's talk about generally anaerobic kind of processes, then talk about fermentation. Fermentation is a certain kind of anaerobic process. Now, when did life start on Earth?
Billions of years ago.
About 4 billion years ago.
I was right.
Earth is about 4.5 billion years, and life started around 4 billion years ago. Now, then the life started. We don't know exact way it started, but we think it started first with the RNA-like molecule. Because RNA can have both, can replicate, but it can have as well enzymatic activity. But then life found a better way. It found for genetic transfers, found DNA, which is more stable, double strand, and for enzymatic activity, found proteins. And the RNA is still between, but most likely start that. But then eventually, just if you throw some fat in water and you put it in a blender, you will have vesicle size of a cell. And eventually that material got into one of those vesicles and then replicated, and then life went on and on and on and on and on. When did life decided that maybe two cells together is better than one cell? When did life started having multi-cell organism? Guess. Here, let's go around. Amanda, you first.
I love this game.
Let me write my answer down real quick.
Are you asking for like a timeline? Like
so
how many
4
years ago?
billion years ago, 4,000 million years ago, life started. How many 1,000 or 100 million years ago life started saying, okay, two cell is better than one?
I am going to say 500 million years ago.
500 million years, 500 million years ago.
Yep.
So you are telling for 3.5 billion years, life on Earth was a one single organism.
I guess I'll say 2.
2 billion years ago. Okay, to you. What about you?
Is that what you're going to say?
I'm going to say 3.9.
Okay, so you think that life started 4 billion years ago, and then
Final
100
answer.
million years ago.
Final answer.
Okay, we are just playing. It's okay. No wrong answer.
Yeah, we're playing.
Yeah, we're playing.
No wrong answer.
Be serious, guys.
It's only a fact,
He's only your boss.
It's down, so.
Okay. So you started with 500 million years, then you went to 2 billion years.
Because you're pressuring me.
Okay, and you are going to that
3.9 billion.
So
lock it in.
100 million years after life was one cell organism become multi-cell organism. What do you say?
50 million.
50 million.
Mm-hmm. I think we had almost
50 million, 70 million years ago, we had dinosaurs. Are they one cell organisms?
That's a big cell. Audacity to even think that naive.
I think dinosaurs are a myth. I'm going to come out and say it.
130 to 75 million years ago, we had dinosaurs.
Myth.
So we had 2 cells, 3.9 billion.
Yeah,
right?
That was right.
What's the answer?
So about 780 million years ago, we started having multi-cells. So your 500 was closest.
Wait a minute.
Stop
That's
pressuring
what was
me.
on the paper. 750 million years ago. That's pretty good.
You just forgot the zero. Okay, but can you imagine what that means? That for the first 3.2 billion years of the life on planet, it just was a domain of one cell organism?
I can't imagine that because things snowball so fast. So it's like once they started doing 2, then they're like 4, 6.
I mean, yeah.
4,
What it kind of
yeah.
tells me is
I
that
meant to say
Exponential.
Yeah,
But
that's what I
that is not
meant.
the point. The
16.
point is it took 500 million years for life to start, but then for the next 3 billion years, it was just that until life figured out that can combine the cells together. So in that time that we are talking about the majority of life on the planet, okay? Either you make your food or you eat other living being, right?
Mhm.
Well, or you are a virus. That's a different story. We have to do it another time.
Yeah. Then we have
It's
to
not long enough. For
figure
us
out, is
to
that
survive.
life,
Yeah.
kind of.
Too long.
Okay, so in that time frame, from that point, life started 4 billion years ago until 780 million years ago. These cells, either they took sun, they created food with sun, like algae and so on, or they ate other living being. And then there was another path that we just discovered not long ago.
Virus
Deep
and
ocean that
hosting.
had something with the deep ocean. That's volcanic things, sulfur. There were some bacteria that could use the energy of burning, like eating sulfur.
Yeah, thermophiles and whatnot.
Thermophiles, exactly. Okay. So, but that is, we can neglect that. They're early
Just
on,
got
and
found out.
yeah, I mean, life started trying anything. Life, that's what it is. Right? No. So we have this 3 group. Let's get rid of the thermophiles. Now we have these 2 group. Eat sun, eat other living being. Okay? So depending on when you are, now, we didn't used to have much of oxygen on the planet, right? What does that mean?
Got to find a way without it.
Lots of
Anaerobic
fermentation.
So that means that was before everything else.
Right.
That the anaerobic things was older than almost anything else. That anaerobic kind of taking the food, breaking it without the oxygen to something and getting some energy of that is the oldest things kind of life form ever. But what's the problem with that though?
It's inefficient.
It's very inefficient. Okay, but there was no oxygen, so that was the most efficient was out there. When did we start having? I'm surprised people don't know that. When did we start having? We had dinosaurs before we had flowers.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's because we didn't have dinosaurs.
So does that mean we don't even exist right now?
Yeah. But that's a different podcast.
Okay, but you see that there, we had this anaerobic oxygen. I'm going to go back to oxygen. It was almost 1.5 billion years of Earth's history that we didn't have meaningful oxygen in the atmosphere. Okay, so in that time, we had some other means, like and as a matter of fact, I think that is why the anaerobic are so strong. So they're so ancient. They're so efficient. No, but not any. No. So let's talk about that. You get the glucose. You guys know the
Krebs cycle?
no Krebs cycle is
not again.
is the aerobic.
Okay.
No, you first, but you see that there because this is more ancient than aerobic. First, you have to get the glucose or sugar to those 3-chain carbon atoms before you can put them in the Krebs cycle.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So that comes again
Before.
aerobic, right? That makes all of a sudden sense. I wish
Sure.
somebody would have taught me biology like that. Why is it that you have to go that first before you can bring oxygen to the game, put it through the Krebs cycle? So, but that area that you get the sugar, and then you break it down, it's 6 carbon, right? Sugar is 6 carbon, correct?
Yep.
Whatever sugar you get, first you have to make it to this monosaccharides, that one molecule of sugar. And you know what this is? Carbon. One carbon goes there, and oxygen is here and they connect together. Okay, you have to break it, make 2-3 chain, and then you
Throw
can.
it into it.
Now, what are the steps of going from glucose to that 3 chain? We will come back to what that 3 chain is. What is the steps? Now, first you make from a sugar, you make aldehyde.
Mhm.
Very toxic. Very toxic. As a matter of fact, you use aldehyde to preserve cadavers.
Mhm.
But we have something in our body that it takes it right away, change it to something else. What's that something else?
I can't remember.
Me.
After aldehyde, you create the alcohol.
Oh, I was actually going to guess that.
Yeah.
Alcohol.
Mhm.
So that from glucose, breaking it, aldehyde, alcohol. What comes after alcohol?
I'm sorry, I'm kind of disappointed on this run.
Vinegar.
Vinegar or acid or
Acid.
acetylic acid. Okay, what they all have in common is that, see, first they found out this is glucose. You can break it, get some ATP out of it. ATP is the
Yeah.
currency of energy. Okay,
Energy.
and then some other anaerobic thing they discovered. Wow, you can take that aldehyde now and make it to alcohol, get more energy out of it.
Mhm.
Some of them figured out you can break that alcohol to acetylic acid or vinegar
Vinegar.
and get more energy out of it. Then vinegar, you can put it in Krebs cycle. Now, and there are, you take a spoon of water from the sea. There are like millions species, not there are like trillion of organisms, but millions of species. Everybody is competing to get that little sugar you put there, right? And now, some of them are more efficient than the other, but some of them are specialized. Like some of them, they just work on the first level. They just make aldehyde. I'm done. Let me give me. This is for me that like my excrement.
Yeah,
And then the other ones say, "Oh, your
Yeah.
poop is my food," and so on.
Mhm.
And then they go on and on and then in that process they produce a lots of other things. Now, fermentation for us is that path, literally, from glucose to acetylic acid
Mhm.
without oxygen, and that's the most important part, without a lot of other things that would be toxic to us. So fermentation is just a small, I would say like a 0.001% of the anaerobic process of bacteria or sometimes even fungus. Okay, it's a anaerobic path that create things that uses some energy of the sugar,
Mhm.
create things that are not toxic to human. Why is it important? Do you remember that I said you get a spoon of water from the sea, and there are like billions or trillions of organisms and millions of species? They all have to fight with each other. How do they fight with each other over this 3 trillion years? Now you understand why this is so refined. This has had time. For 3 billion years, they have found a way to find their niche and suppress the others. So, if you choose the right species of this bacteria, fungus, or some other things, they break the glucose, they make alcohol, and then we get drunk, or they make vinegar. But with that process, they suppress every other bacteria or every other living being. So we have a monoculture that is good for us, or it's our microbiome or probiotic or are biologically compatible with us, which is suppressing practically they make their own antibiotics.
So basically, because eating fermented food is really good for your gut health. Is that because the bacteria kills the bad bacteria in your gut?
No, it is good for you because you're using those bacteria for that process that are good for you. For every bacteria that's good for you, there are probably 5 million that are bad for you. But you don't use them for that process, and we don't call that fermentation. We call them sewage and so on. But the fermentation is kind of process getting the glucose, energy from the glucose, breaking it down. Obviously, we never stop at aldehyde. We always go either to alcohol or to vinegar. As a matter of fact, people who make wines, they know that. If you wait too long, more vinegar than wine, and so on. That you have to stop it at certain point. By how do you stop it? You pasteurize it. You just bring the temperature to a certain point.
Kill it all off.
So that it doesn't move
Can you
forward.
put it in the fridge, and when you put it in the fridge, then it doesn't grow so fast?
I mean, I imagine it would slow down that metabolism, but it's not going to stop it. That's why yogurt goes bad.
Like, for example, my pickle recipes. It's a salt brine. And so you keep it on the counter or like in a dark space for 3 days, but you're not supposed to keep it longer, and then you put it in the fridge.
Okay, let's start with that salt brine, because how do we ferment? Okay, salt is a fermentation method. Now, it's not unheard of that certain bacteria, certain fermentation agent can survive in that salt brine. Most of the others cannot. So your salt brine is actually selecting those kind of bacteria that are good for you. Or what you do, you take the old brine from the fermented stuff, you add it to the new stuff. No different than making bread.
That's how you make kombucha. Kombucha.
Yeah. Now, yes, kombucha is one of them. Bread. Let's talk about bread. It's a fermentation process, right?
Yeah.
Sourdough.
Well,
Sourdough especially.
what is special about the bread fermentation? Why do we even do that? Why not just put, so
well, it helps you to digest it better, and it helps your blood sugar spike less when you eat you eat sourdough.
All true. But it's more than that though. Okay. Have you ever tried to make bread without fermentation or without yeast or without baking soda?
Yeah, it's
unleavened.
You cannot bite in it.
Yeah, it's really dense.
I like unleavened bread.
Yeah.
But it's dense as all get out.
Everyone has
you won't
their
have
thing.
much teeth if you do it for tens of years.
I was going to say, if I'm back in the day and I don't have a dentist either, I don't think I want the brick.
Give me some soft bread.
What it makes is make that microscopic pocket of air, which is not really air, which then literally makes that the whole thing bigger and softer.
Yeah, I was actually trying to explain to someone recently. They were arguing. I hope you don't, but they were arguing with me about this. That I was saying you have to put some sugar in bread.
Activate it.
You have to put some sugar in the bread to activate
Why?
the yeast. The yeast is hungry for the sugar.
We
and
just
it
talked
helps-
about it.
and it helps it ferment. Yeah, that's what I was
break
explaining.
down.
You're going to break down nothing? If you can figure out how to break down nothing into energy, come talk to
I
me.
was
I've got a
losing
business
my
idea
mind.
for you.
I've been trying for
my
years
mind.
having this conversation.
See, some bacteria can take the starch from the flour and break it, but that takes a long time.
Mhm.
So you want to give them sugar because it is ready to eat it and make it from 6 carbon to what? To what?
3.
To aldehyde. But
To
that aldehyde
alcohol.
is 2 carbon. What is the other carbon goes to? So see, you get the sugar, you turn it to acetylic acid, which is 2 carbon, right? C2H5OH. That's a carbon acetyl acid vinegar. That's vinegar. 2 carbon, not 3. So you make from 1 sugar 2 vinegar molecule, 2 acetylic acid. Where did the other carbon go to?
Did it get eaten? Or?
Gas?
Well, it becomes
Waste?
CO2.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Waste.
It becomes carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide is what you have, that pocket of air in the bread is not air, it's carbon dioxide. The beer, that is how we figured out how to do carbonated beer. Beer is carbonated. It is the carbon dioxide that the missing carbon, the 2 missing carbon from the 6 carbon molecule sugar that makes the carbon dioxide and create that air within.
I actually made my own vinegar one time, and you had to put a balloon on the top of the bottle, and then when the balloon is full, then you know you're done.
So that exactly says, how much of the sugar get turned into carbon dioxide, because twice as much carbon dioxide is produced, you're going to have vinegar molecule in the solution, right?
Right.
So it's a correlation there. That's a kitchen science. That's kind of kitchen science. But you see that there, when you understand this connection between the chemistry and so on, then all of that makes sense. All of a sudden, why fermentation, why the same process that makes the bread makes the beer and so on. And why is it that, women can tolerate less alcohol than men?
Why?
Because men have a much stronger aldehyde dehydrogenase in our liver. We can get rid of that. Hangover is nothing more. Okay, well, let's get it this way. Okay, it goes. The steps goes from glucose to alcohol to aldehyde to vinegar to acid. Okay, so what that means is that in your body, if you get the alcohol will become actually you can burn. Alcohol has lots of calories. Alcohol become acid, vinegar, but the step between, there are two dehydrogenase molecules or enzymes that take the one step, and then they turn the alcohol to aldehyde to acetylic acid. Now there are two enzymes. There's alcohol dehydrogenase and the aldehyde dehydrogenase. And man has, in our liver, we have better, for some reason, we have better alcohol or aldehyde dehydrogenase. We are better at getting rid of the aldehyde, and aldehyde is what makes the hangover.
It's actually interesting because some genetics from Eastern Asia and whatnot have a paucity of that enzyme.
They have a weaker enzyme. Yes, that is why, like Indian, lots of Native American, and lots of Asian, they get drunk faster, and it's more toxic to them. And some people like German and the Irish, or Russian, they can just drink. Yeah.
Hey, calorie efficient,
Yeah.
That's interesting though, because I always think of like fermented foods either being Russian or being actually Asian.
Now, for a very, very long time, that was the only way for human to make things preserve. I remember, even when I was a little child, we had a fridge, but we didn't have a really freezer. And the end of the summer, when the people have fruits and vegetables and so on, we would go buy a lot of it. Then we would put some vinegar and some water, and then we would just let it in a big dark area, and it would be some, I would say, fungus on top of it. And then every time we would go we would call it. I'm salivating because it is
Me
something
too.
we call it like a pickled stuff, and then in Persian torshi, and you had to get rid of the fungus on top and then get this stuff. But as long as you don't eat the fungus directly, you are fine, because that fungus is actually building a barrier so big, like a person could get into that. You always would skim the fungus away, get some of the thing, and then the fungus would go back and build a barrier against other organism, and you could keep it for years. As a matter of fact, I'm salivating still. There's a version of that you would say first after 7 years it has a good quality. And that's not really specific to my culture, like Korea, kimchi.
They're kimchi sellers and whatnot.
Yeah, they put it in a thing, they bury it even. Yeah, you go.
Did it taste like vinegar?
It is like a very, very mild vinegar.
Okay.
But yes, it did. It was like a vinegary and so on, but we love it. We just gobble it up because
Like what kind of fruit? I'm just wondering, what was your favorite?
mostly, I'm still salivating. Mostly that cauliflower, cabbage,
Oh, okay, vegetables.
vegetables,
Yeah. Okay.
You've been saying
You've
fruit
been
this
saying
whole time.
fruit.
fruit. Okay,
Like,
so
Not to be another,
Strawberries and
gaslighting
vinegar.
man on the other end of the table, but I did hear vegetables.
okay.
So,
High five,
hey,
high five.
I'm sorry.
I think
I
it's
just,
a man thing.
vegetables.
Only women.
This is
women
true.
were listening.
we don't think about fruit at all.
Peaches,
Vegetables.
apples.
Especially when he was
No.
doing this. I was thinking like an
I was thinking a big
apple,
fat
a pear.
cabbage.
Yeah.
Like,
Why? If
Cabbage.
you've been in his basement,
I still have.
You guys.
No,
I think I'm afraid of
onion,
that.
vegetables, garlic,
Mhm.
carrots,
cauliflower.
Stop.
cauliflower.
I actually
Now
just,
the salivation's
He said
kicking in.
it's the second he said garlic. Oh, it's on now. I'm there.
I actually just pickled some radishes and carrots together. But
Okay.
I made a recipe, my salt brine that I was talking about earlier, the pickles. The recipe specifically said don't add garlic because adding garlic can increase the
You-
risk of a bacteria.
I think we in our place we do garlic separate from everything
Mm.
else. We do garlic by itself, and we do other things. And there is another thing we call it like a brine, salty brine things that is without vinegar. I like that even more.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, well, it just tastes it, and most of stuff still stay crunchy. Whereas with vinegar, they become softer with that salt brine fermentation. They still keep their crunchiness, and I like that crunchiness.
Well, the vinegar I've read recently, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I read that if you want probiotics, you actually should use a salt or a sugar brine because the vinegar can kill the probiotics.
no, it has different probiotics. I can tell you, the vinegar is a product of.
Well,
Mhm.
okay, what
Some
I'm
of
saying
those-
for your health, the
Yeah.
vinegar kills the probiotics that you're looking for your gut, is what I read. I don't know
Well,
if that's accurate.
I think that our probiotic or our microbiome has so many different levels.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'm sure there are some that are vinegary on the vinegary side. You see, on the vinegary side, you need sugar. Sugar
Mhm.
become alcohol, aldehyde, vinegar. The other one is that you don't add really much of a sugar, or you don't add any sugar at all. They take the material, like the fiber of that thing,
Mm.
and they break it. Okay, fiber. Okay. Did you guys know this table is sugar? It's wood, right? Well, not that.
You gotta be careful. I'm hungry
surface
enough
of
to
it.
consider it.
Surface
After
of
the
it,
fermented fruit thing.
or that cardboard, it's cellulose. Cellulose is sugar.
No, that makes sense.
It's just a different combination of the
Mhm.
glucose molecule. It's glucose molecule. As a matter of fact, the Nazis made a way of taking the pulp of the trees and the cardboard to breaking it to make sugar out of it.
Hmm.
The reason we don't do that is easier to do it the other way.
Yeah.
Okay, but it is at the end of the day, it's sugar.
If it burns, I mean,
It is sugar.
Mhm.
So it's just a different combination of the glucose molecules. They come together in a different way that we don't have the enzyme to digest it. That's all what it is. No mammal has that. As a matter of fact, cows and so on, they eat that. They don't do that. They just eat it. The bacteria in their guts, they break the cellulose, and then they digest what bacteria. Then after the bacteria break down the cellulose of the thing. So, what I was saying that this fermentation that without sugar, those bacteria are specialized. They break the fibers, including cellulose, of those whatever we put in, like cabbage, and then they use that in the process of fermentation. But it is as well a fermentation. At the end of the day, fermentation goes all those paths, but it's not with added sugar or anything. It's just the sugar that they extract from the food that's already there.
But you can ferment with sugar.
Oh, absolutely. It's the most efficient way of fermenting that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is like any kind of time you make alcohol, you're fermenting. Like, how do we make alcohol?
Depends which kind, but yeah.
But you take something
sweet.
that has starch,
Mhm.
potato,
Mhm.
wheat,
Yeah.
whatever,
Mhm.
and then you add material to that literally they break that starch, they make glucose, and then they turn the glucose and turn it into.
Yeah, but even cane sugar. I mean, like
Yeah.
even sugar that you bake with. You
Yeah,
can
well,
just
if
use
you
that.
think about wine, like a lot of times it's coming from grapes. That's just raw sugar right
Right.
there. So.
Yeah. But most of the time, the raw sugar is way too valuable for us
Mhm.
to turn it into. We do a lot of work to get that raw sugar.
What's more valuable than wine?
Well,
Exactly.
I'm like not understanding.
no,
We
if you
don't
would,
know.
okay, if you would go few hundred years back,
I'm kidding.
wine
FYI.
was meaningless. Sugar was a big deal, especially white sugar. There were wars fought. I mean, not even long time ago. Long, bloody wars. I mean, we enslave lots of people in Haiti and so on. That's another
Mhm.
story.
Okay.
Well, for
Let me counter
sugar.
that.
Okay.
What about? I'm on Alyssa's side. What about when water was so like unclean, we had to drink alcohol? Isn't that a thing?
That is not a long time ago either. Yes, it is a thing. As a
So-
matter of fact,
She goes, so value.
no, see, even right now, you give few percentage alcohol in any bad water, you kill almost everything, there, and then you may get a little drunk, but at least you don't die of
Mhm.
being sick. And for a long time, the fermentation was a way for us not to die. Literally, like in Germany, they would water down wine and beer, give it to babies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the babies would be a little low IQ, but at least they wouldn't die.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
just read a book about that in the U.S. The people lived in the South and they couldn't afford clean water, but they could afford beer. So the child became like an alcoholic by the age of 4.
But because it was fermentation is so easy.
Mhm.
That is the magic of fermentation. You can do it in your kitchen. You can do it in your cellar. Fermentation is something that nature is doing all the time for you.
I think I've done some fermentation under my bed by accident. a
Oh
few
God,
times.
I've done
What,
that.
what does that
I
mean?
drink body armor. Okay, body armor is like
What's a body armor?
Powerade. It's like Gatorade. It's
Oh.
it's a sugar drink that's meant to not be sugar, but you throw the lid on it, you forget it, it rolls under the bed. A couple days later,
And
you
then
pull it out, it's full of air. You're scared
Yeah.
to open it. You go, boop, it smells. You're like, sorry.
Now, if it smells bad, it's not fermentation. It's an anaerobic
Mhm.
bacterial decay.
Yeah, well, all the above. I stay kind of far from it, dump it out, and run away. That's what I think of when I think of fermentation.
I'd like to quickly open up the topic on fermentation smell. By the way, he says when it smells bad, it's not some fermentation does smell
Agree.
bad. That's just because of a preference.
Of
It's
what
not.
it
It's like
is.
more. It's not as visceral of a reaction.
Well,
Yeah.
there is actually a special food in Norway. Norway used to be only 1,000 years back, not million years, okay? A very, very poor country. It was too cold. That's why they went to England. They
Mhm.
captured half of England, and then they got killed. And then they killed British and so on. Norway was not a good place to live. And it could support very few people and so on. They mostly ate fish. But
Mhm.
in the winter, if it's everything frozen, you cannot go get fish. So what do? They put fish in a barrel and let it
God.
ferment.
My
Mhm.
grandma still likes that stuff.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can't think of what it's called.
It is the
Starts with
most
H.
disgusting
Hair.
smell, but once you get over it, they say it has a rancid, pleasant, rancid taste. They say. I haven't tried that.
I'm assuming this is because it was like salt too rare of a resource to just
Oh,
salt
no,
all this
no
fish.
salt. I mean,
Okay,
salt
okay.
is a very valuable resource.
Yeah.
They just put the fish in a barrel, let it ferment, and then it is. But consider that it was either that or starve.
Yep.
Or raid the English.
The latter.
Oh, right. No, that is one of the reasons that the Norway, the Vikings,
Mhm.
raiding was part of their thing. Once a year, we need stuff. Let's go kill few other people and
Yeah.
raid them. So that was part of, because their life was harsh. So for them, that fermented fish was a delicacy, and it still is. I mean, if you
Oh.
go there, they say only the local people can really love that and so on. But people who have tried that, they say once you get over the smell, that rancid taste, you become actually they
I
become
can
Oh my
poison.
gosh.
understand because I wanted to actually thinking about stinky fermentation. Talk about cheese,
Cheese, yeah.
like blue cheese. To be honest, it's kind of like a
Doesn't-
gross taste, but why do I kind of like it at the same time?
Okay, so I do enjoy blue cheese. I'm a big cheese guy, but also I just like
Same.
food. So I might have tried that rancid fish thing if it didn't smell first. But anyways,
Mm.
I think blue cheese actually has a fungal component to it.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I
so
think- yeah,
I
you're
think
right,
there's
yeah.
a big
Fungus.
part of that. But I do like how there's the different points at which we pasteurize the dairy determines, okay, yogurt, cheese, milk, where we
I
going?
think probably in the United States, eventually you will pasteurize it.
Mhm.
But in most of the world, the cheese is still the probiotic what it's supposed to be, meaning
Mhm.
that there's still living thing in the cheese in most of the rest of the world.
Mhm.
If you don't need to put it on shelf for 6 months. As a matter of fact, there is even a cheese in Italy that they put actually worms, some flies,
Ah, I
they
saw
put
it on
worms,
TikTok.
and that worms, no, actually, I had it. And
It's in
that-
Italy?
It's in Italy, yeah.
I think I've seen this at
It
Perkins
is-
before.
It is forbidden in most of the rest of the world, but the worm, they eat the cheese and then their excrement, what gives that special taste. So you are putting on your bread, and the worms are still crawling around and so on and so forth. People say, it's actually, I mean, I scrapped I scrapped the worms away. No, that
I'm
is
like-
Swiss cheese holes. That is a carbon dioxide.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so
I
no,
could
but
get behind that.
I scrapped the worms away, but it actually tastes good.
The way
You
I'm
know,
crying.
I'm trying to picture the dairy farmer that first made the pitch for this. No, the worms are included.
It's like
Yeah, I
Try
like
it.
the worms.
It's a delicacy.
Okay, most of the things we do is by necessity and by accident. Like that probably somebody had a cheese and it got like that, and he was so hungry, said, I don't care. And then they did, no, this is really good.
Mhm.
So I'm going to make it on purpose. Or there is a special kind of bread that like a pretzel. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, but how do you create pretzel? You put it in a lye, then you bake it.
you can actually boil it in baking soda, like boil it water with baking soda. and
Well,
put it-
any kind of lye and so on. That is how you make it. Now, the story is, this is just 300 years ago or 250 years ago, is that it fell in a lye that they were using to clean the house, and then this is I'm not sure how true or not true this story is. Okay,
Yeah.
so every house they used to make their own bread, and in big aristocratic house they just had a place, the kitchen, just for bread, because that was main staple
Mhm.
food. And obviously you clean the floor. They
Mhm.
used to use lye to clean the floor.
Mhm.
So a piece of dough falls in the lye, and the scared maid is so scared, because this valuable thing, take it quickly out and still bakes it, and it comes out is different color, different texture, and so on. And then the person, the lady of the house, sees that and says, "Oh, I'm not going to eat it. Give it to the horse." And then the horse had a name. I have to look it up what that was.
pretzel.
No.
Yankee Doodle.
No. And then in French, give it to the horse, and the horse had a name. That horse had a name that she says, "I'm not going to eat that. Give it to my horse," and so on. And then the name of that bread is now the name of that. Give it to the horse. The name of that horse. Like, let's say the name of the horse is Lily. Like, give it to the Lily. It's the name of the bread. I forgot the name. It's very
It's a
interesting.
cute story. though.
It's a cute. No, in the cute story, probably is true that many of the things we discover, like making pretzel, you have to put it in lye.
Mhm.
That probably happened because they had the cleaning thing there, and something fell there, and then they saw that it makes completely something different. So with the blue cheese, with the other cheese, with the worm in it, probably the same.
Well, honestly, when you think about it, at the end of the day, there's an entire category of food that is deadly to humans until cooked. And I had always wondered,
Like what?
who said, like, for example, eel.
And so
Eel will
much-
kill you if you just eat raw eel. You'll die. The blood is toxic. But if you cook it, it's delicious. So it always made me think, okay, there's a category of people out there that saw some guy die eating this and said, what if I cooked it?
What
But I mean-
Potato
what's
is
your heat?
toxic to you.
True.
Mhm.
What was that?
Potato.
If you eat it raw, it's toxic to you.
Actually, my
I
science teacher
eat
used to eat raw potato.
potatoes raw. No, I wouldn't say. I often.
How?
You're
in
dead.
What situation would you eat potato
Well, you
raw?
aren't supposed to eat the
When
green
I'm-
potatoes.
Cutting my potatoes up to cook them and boil them.
How much of that do you eat it? How much
I'm
of
so
that-
s-
Not a whole potato, just like a bite or
Okay,
something.
It's kind of weird, to be
Okay.
honest.
But,
I've never had anyone tell me that it was not safe.
No, it's the
At
green
all.
part.
Okay.
You can't eat the green part. You can eat the.
Well, potato, uncooked potato is actually has things that are toxic to
Mhm.
human, all mammals actually.
But
So-
the whole idea of that idea, like category of things, kill you unless cooked. Somebody at some point said, "I'm going to die if I don't eat this. I got to
Yeah.
give it a shot."
True.
So
And some categories are, if
Hmm.
they are not cooked, they are as well deadly to you because they will eat you if you don't cook them.
Can we talk about the dangers of improper fermentation?
Absolutely, and everybody have heard about the botulism and so on.
Mhm.
Which is actually much less common than I thought. I think when I looked it up, like 200 people die per year of botulism.
And 200
Wow.
people die of your wrath. So you're more
Watch
deadly
out.
than, more deadly than botulism.
Yeah, but what are the fear? How can you know if something you fermented is fermented properly?
Well,
Mm.
you know, obviously the natural sign or the classic sign of bad fermentation is that it's still building, you know, some gases. And
Mhm.
then when you have that thing and then the lid is bulging out,
Mhm.
obviously be careful with that. That is the typical sign that the
Yeah.
fermentation is still going on there.
Mhm.
And that is a typical sign that I know. But
Yeah, like a can of something. You know, you have a can
Yeah.
of green beans. If it expands, no.
yeah,
What if it's a glass jar that you made at home and now you're worried to try it?
If that expands, throw it away. So
yeah, probably if it's expanding,
Mm.
that you know, even those good bacteria and so on, at certain point they produce things that are toxic to us. Now, the old way, the fungus are different. There are lots of toxic fungus, obviously, but
Mhm.
there are certain fungus that they constantly, you know, they still can produce that. They actually protect. As a matter of fact, all antibiotics are
Mhm.
discovered originally because the fungus have to kill the bacteria to have the food for themselves.
Mhm.
yeah, that's why when you mentioned the fermenting, you know, you did back in
Yeah.
the day in the basement, I was like, that layer of fungus is keeping all the food safe. Don't be afraid of that thing.
Yeah. But that is something about fungus that they actively protecting against other things. Whereas, in many cases, you know, like when your grandma make something pickle and so on, you put it in a bath water, you pasteurize it and so on, meaning that if fermentation is still ongoing there, that pasteurization wasn't really effective.
Mhm.
So you may want to not get into that. Now, having said that, there is, then it becomes truly a science about how do you absolutely select kind of bacteria or
Mhm.
fungus, mostly fungus, that keep it still safe because they are so aggressive of getting
Mhm.
rid of everything else. Like in our house, that big kind of, I would say, clay container, that they were huge, and then we constantly would have to get rid of the fungus. A white piece on top, which is about almost quarter of a or half an inch.
Mhm.
You have to push it away, get the stuff, and then it would just repopulate itself there.
In kombucha, that's called the Scooby.
That has that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, it's like a jelly type, like right, like
Mhm.
a thick, like jelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, if people make kombucha in sheets, it's the thing, like in a pan, it's the sheet that forms on top. It's
Okay.
the nastiest thing.
So
what-
we
so
talked
when
a
you're
lot about
fermenting-
fermentation.
But when you're fermenting like vegetables and stuff, shouldn't you make sure it's all underneath the liquid? What if some of it's peeking up? Is that still okay to eat?
That's you remember anaerobic, no air.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that
Mhm.
part? We went millions of years back to talk about that. That
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember.
air.
I was-
so
Really?
when is it?
went on
What
the
is it
kombucha.
when it's above the water?
Aerobic.
Aerobic.
Yeah. something else is going on there, not fermentation.
But, like if it's like, for
And-
example, a sealed jar,
Mhm.
and then You pressurized the jar and you had to leave 1 inch of headspace. Why are you leaving the headspace?
Okay, well, first of all, you want everything submerged in the water. But the reason you put a little bit of, not much, a little bit of air is that when it's hot, that air is expanding. When it's cooled down, the vacuum pull that air, the volume of that air becomes less. It vacuum seal itself. That's a physical phenomenon. That's nothing to do. But then there's a vacuum. It's clearly taking it in. But then if it bulges out, then you're in trouble. Okay.
Thank you guys for watching. This is Essence of Science, and we talked about fermentation. I'm Amanda Armagoss.
I'm Melissa Haber.
Dominic Moore.